Howdy folks, in today's episode we'll find out how to get good at photography from planning, shooting to editing and so on with one of the foremost educators right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. As always, I'm your host, Kirsten Nuts, and before we get into it, I've got one thing to ask of you. I've noticed that over 65% of our viewers on YouTube and listeners in audio are not actually subscribed to this channel. I mean, come on people. You can really help me out by hitting that subscribe button. It'll help me get even more amazing guests on the show, although I doubt that's actually really possible. It's just one click. That's all it takes. Thank you so much. Now, without further ado, let's give it up for today's special guest, the sports and portrait photographer, director of education for Skylum Software, and, as I've just found out, Triple Crown karate champion. Give it up for Mr. Robert Vanelli. V-Man, how's things?
Hey, man, it's great to see you again, as always, and thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you. It's been a long time in the planning, but finally we made it happen. So I'm super happy to have you on the show. Today is going to be all about getting better, getting good at photography, no matter what stage you're at. But before we get into that, I've got to ask, Triple Crown champion in karate. I did not know that about you.
Yeah, so I was the youngest Triple Crown, meaning I was rated in fighting, forms, and weapons. And I'm glad you brought that up, not because of my past, because people have goals. They set goals for themselves, and photography is the same way. Goals are okay, but you want a roadmap. You want to be able a repeatable format that it worked in this area, now it's going to work in this area. So I was fortunate coming up through getting ready for the Olympics, getting ready for the Triple Crown Championship, because it was called luck, L-U-C-K, laboring under correct knowledge. And if you have the luck, it's because you're laboring or learning from people who've accomplished what you want. My brother John was the undefeated heavyweight champion. My instructor, my brother John instructor and my instructor was also a Triple Crown champion. And then Bill Superfoot Wallace was one of my main mentors, who was the undefeated middleweight champion. And he's 78 years old right now, and he's still teaching live workshops on a weekly basis. So if you want to become great, take what you've already been accomplished at and then figure out what made you great in that area, and luck, laboring under correct knowledge, apply it to your photography, and you'll see how your skills are just boom through the roof. So yes, thank you about the karate. Again, that was 1984, 5, and 6. Probably before you were born.
No. I was actually already. I tell you what, that was the time of Karate Kid, the movie. I remember it. Ralph Macchio.
Yep.
It's a perfect time.
We went from, it's so funny, we went from something like 60 students, and I'm not kidding, to 1,200 students.
Wow.
In one school, and then we opened up another school and had another 1,200 students in that school. And we were the number 1 and number 2 school in the country. And it was neat because at the age of 18, I'm being mentored by Zig Ziglar, Dr. Dennis Waitley. So there's a lot of perks that come along with some of the stuff that we did. And I was just fortunate. I was at the right place at the right time, learning under the correct people to get me to where I had to go. And then when I stepped down in 86, I was 22, and I opened up my own karate school, using the philosophy of what I've learned there. And then, as you know, I had a dual career all this time, photography and karate. And then when the photography just got overwhelming, I relinquished after 35 years my studio to my black belts and let them carry on the tradition. And of course, Skylum came along, and that's where I'm working for them, full-time since 2015. So 2018 full-time. 2015, I've been associated with them. So that was a good segue. I'm glad you brought that up. Usually I try to shy away from that.
Well, I thought it was such an interesting fact because I didn't know that about you, the karate connection, of course. I thought, when I read that, I thought, well, I'm sure there's got to be a connection between, the the rigor and the discipline required to get good at karate, especially getting to that level, there's got to be a connection between that and in the way that you apply that to your photography.
Exactly. And I want to show you the formula. In fact, our real good friend, Glenn Dewis, I don't know if you knew this about Glenn. He was a bodybuilder.
Oh, yes, I did know that. Yeah.
And he won. I mean, the man was incredible. And it's so neat that he applied what made him successful as a bodybuilder to his photography and then to his education. So there's a lot of people. Scott Kelby was an extremely talented musician. Never made it to the national level, but he and his wife, they had a band, and that's how they started out coming up through. So it's neat how you look back. Well, even like Peter Hurley, for example, was a very successful model. And now here he is doing photography and taking what he learned from there and applying it to another genre.
And actually, Peter Hurley was an Olympic sailor. I believe he was in the Olympic Games, actually.
Well, that and a boat, World Cup.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So it just goes to show that actually, if you want to get good at anything, the basic principles sort of remain the same in many ways.
Exactly. Yep. And I'd love to explain how to do it in photography. So you've already heard me talk about luck, laboring under correct knowledge. So if you're just starting out, my suggestion, find somebody who you admire, you love their work, and you humbly ask, hey, could you mentor me in this? So that's number one. You find someone who's doing what you love to do and, appeal to them and say, look, I really love the way you present your photography. I want to learn how to represent your style, and work it towards my own and become similar to what you're doing. So most photographers will, and we'll get into that in a moment, most photographers will jump on that chance of mentoring. And the second thing, if you're a new photographer, please do not do what I used to do on my golf game. I can't buy golf. I would buy the latest clubs, the best balls. I used to joke when I walk into the pro shop, I would go, Schmitty, if I buy this shirt, he goes, Mr. Vanelli, you buy that shirt, guaranteed, it'll knock 2 strokes off your game. And people were in there going, really? I said, well, yeah, because the way it lets venting the air in, it helps with your swing. Really? No. I go, come on, people. You can't buy your golf game, just like photographers can't buy their photography. So my suggestion is get a good camera, but don't get like the most expensive one. Use that money for education. So, why buy a Ferrari if you don't have a driver's license? Learn how to become a great photographer. Then you could decide, what gear do I need to really make me excel in these areas?
And of course, that always depends on what it is that you're shooting. It can differ greatly from, let's say, if you're a landscape photographer compared to, let's say, if you shoot studio portraits. And so
exactly.
the question, because that's always, it's one of the most common questions I get is like, okay, what's the best camera to buy? And it's like, well, how would I know? What is it that you need for it?
Because it has to be specific to you. What do you want to do, and how can gear enhance you, not be a crutch?
Yeah, exactly. And what you said about investing into education, I think that really rings true, especially for me as well. I mean, I remember when I started out with a very not inexpensive Nikon camera I had. APS-C sensor. It wasn't very expensive. I had it for quite a long time, and I learned really everything. I think everything I know about lighting I learned with that camera. Didn't really, because even back then, the images that thing could produce were actually really good. I mean,
yes.
Could you blow them up to put them on the side of a building? Probably not. Side of a bus? Well, maybe not. But for what I was doing at the time, posting on Facebook or something, they were perfect. They were great. You could, in that respect, I didn't need anything
You know when I came to that realization? Um, my good friend Gary Farber, he owns Hunt's Cameras. He is a huge Red Sox fan. Huge. And they have a rivalry with the New York Yankees. So I'll never forget. I was at one of the stadiums. I can't remember which one it was, but one of his heroes, I forgot who it was, the all-star baseball player, they enlarged this amazing capture. Now, this is back in the either 50s or 60s, this image was taken. I think the 50s, where him jumping up, and it was like unheard of. And he caught the ball before it became a home run. And the quality of it, grainy as heck. You could tell who it was, but it wasn't tack sharp. And I thought, you know what? It didn't matter what the quality was. It was the content. The content of what they captured. Muhammad Ali's photo, where he knocked out, I want to say Sonny Lipson. He knocked down that famous shot of him standing over him. Now, they've enhanced it over the years. But the original images was noisy. It just wasn't, it was good from a photography standpoint. But the content was amazing. So, yes, we made major changes, but think back when the Nikon D2X came out. Oh my God, this is the end all. Well, then the D3 came out, the D4 came out. Now the Nikon 6 came out. Same thing with the Canon series. Well, okay, yeah, it's getting better and better each time, but let's not forget, people were still making a living back then with that gear. Now, yes, standards have increased, but once again, invest in education and find a mentor to help you learn that. And I do want to point out, if you are an experienced photographer, so here's an interesting, let's say you're an intermediate to advanced photographer, you're not a master yet, but you're intermediate. If you're not having an intern or an assistant, put your left hand out like this, take your right hand and just keep slapping the heck out of it, because you should have an intern. Why? It makes you better as a photographer. I love my sons. I love my son now, but I mean, at the age when he asked a million questions, why? Let's do it. Why? What? That forced me to give him the answers. Interns are like those little infants. They're going to ask why. Why am I setting the shutter speed at this? Why am I doing this? Why? And it forces you to come up with the answer instead of just saying, I don't know, because that's why we do it. Why? Why are we doing the rules of third? And that's going to make you a better photographer. Now, obviously, master photographers should be the ones mentoring the intermediate to the advanced photographers to make the whole system. Notice how I'm emulating martial arts. You have a master black belt. He works with the black belts. They work with the students, and the students, upper belts, work with the lower belts. So it's a constant learning cycle. And if you can embrace that, that's absolutely amazing. And if you're saying to me, well, where do I find these people? Go to camera clubs, local colleges, local high schools, and don't be afraid to go in and career day and talk to the kids. Talk to them. Look, here's a philosophy I've learned as a photographer. Maybe you don't want to be a photographer. Use these same concepts I'm showing you into whatever career path you're going. And you'll just see your skill will just go right through the roof.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the concept of teaching others and improving yourself is it's really so true. I can associate with that, or whatever the word is I'm trying to think of.
Awesome. But and it's funny because people ask me, out of any company you could work for, why Skylum? And I got to be honest. In I think it was 2015, it was at WPPI. I did some consulting work for them, but not really. I mean, it wasn't full-time until 2018. Our co-founder, Dima, and our CEO now is Ivan. They brought me out to the side. They said, Vanelli, we want to show you a new product. It was called Luminar. And it went from the McFun days, which was only on Mac, and I never used it because I'm a Windows person. They converted it over to Windows. And they said, we feel the old way of editing is outdated. That's why we created Luminar. Would you like to be a part of something big? I'm telling you, I still get goosebumps. When they sold me right then and there, because they started with why. Why? Why do we want to do this? Not to make a fortune, not for notoriety. We feel the old way of editing is outdated. We want to create software to make photographers better. And then they showed me the dramatic tool. And back then, Joel Grimes and myself, we were working on the Sports Grit look all the way through. They took my Sports Grit look and in one slider created an AI that you drag it. You want a little bit, you want a lot of it, you want to increase the light, decrease the light. Boom! My Sports Grit look would used to take us, and Joel and I would joke about it. I can do that look in 10 minutes. Well, I can do that look in 5 minutes. Well, I can do that look in 3. Well, I could batch process it in 30 seconds. Not 30 seconds, it was more like 2.5 minutes. No, with one slider, I got my look, and then I'm able to copy it to a set of... So imagine doing a photo shoot, and this is key. You do the photo shoot, that client walks around, looks at their camera, or at the image on the computer, and you already applied your style right then and there. So Listen close. Being the pro doesn't mean professional. Yes, you have to be professional. Being a pro means you're proficient. Scott Bourne was the one who taught me that. Being a pro means you're proficient. So imagine on one of your portrait sessions, you take that shot, and by the time they walk behind that computer and they look at what they have, it's done. And then you can actually send it to them. So by the time they leave that session, they could post on social media. You could send it off for printing, whatever you need to do, and your work is done. If you have to sit in front of a computer, and you ask yourself, are you a photographer, a portrait retoucher, or a graphic artist? Now, you could be all three, but in that moment, be that one thing. If you're a photographer, you make sure there's not a light switch behind that person when you take a photo. You could easily, and if you do say, well, I'll just fix that later on in Luminar or in Photoshop or in Lightroom, put the hand out again, slap, slap, slap. By the way, I guess you could tell I went to Catholic schools. I'm used to getting hit on the hand. So tell yourself, no, I'm a photographer in this moment. There's a light switch, shift over, hide the light switch with the subject, take your picture. So that's phenomenal for beginners. Intermediate and advanced, you guys are already used to it. And at that level, for intermediate or advanced, now you're like, okay, I got the shot in camera. Ooh, as a retoucher, what can I do to make this even better? And then in your mind, while you're doing the shoot, bring in a makeup artist, bring in a stylist, and now you're set. And then when you come over, because that job is done, now you're a retoucher. You focus as a retoucher. What can I do? And at the same time, what I really love, and Photoshop has this too, but we have what's called a relight tool. You know how I use it? I relight the subject and tell myself, the next time I do that photo shoot, this is how I want it lit.
Yeah.
So the next, like a good example is my Sports Grit look. I want the lower half of the subject to be shadowed, darker. The upper half where the number is, of course, let's say the ball and the person's face to be the center of attention. I did that inside Luminar with a gradient, made the bottom half dark, upper body light, and thought, the next time I do this photo shoot, I'll take the light and I'm going to feather the light up. Well, now the lower half is going to be darker, and if it's not enough, I'll stick a diffuser in between the light. So now the top half is one stop brighter than the bottom half. And when I get to look, but look what software did for me. Look how the software did it. Now, the last part, of course, graphic artists, you need Photoshop, GIMP, or what's the other one? Photoshop, GIMP, and there's another one big in the UK. I forgot the name of it. But anyways, a graphics program creates posters, beautiful text on the bottom, and there's nothing wrong with that. So you learn, am I a photographer, graphic artist, or retoucher or graphic artist? I want to be all three. Okay, well, let's just make sure you're that person in that moment, and then you work from there.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps. The thing that's really important to remember, and I say it all the time, I've said it a million times on this podcast too, it's especially when you go past the, let's say the hobby stage, when you're starting to make money.
I call that photo enthusiast stage.
Oh, photo enthusiast stage. Yes, that's a much better word. Much better word. So once you turn from being an enthusiast to being a professional in the traditional sense of like you actually get paid for the job sort of thing, there's a thing that becomes really important. It's time. I could say like, yeah, I can fix that in Photoshop, but then I would spend another 20 minutes on this particular image potentially, right? In that case, literally time is money. I always think of it this way, and I can't remember who told me that originally, but it's absolutely true. When I'm behind the camera, I'm making money. When I'm in front of the computer, I'm losing money. It's really that simple. So if, for instance, if one of the things I do quite regularly, if I do like a volume headshot shoot, for example, and I have to retouch 20 images, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at that point, if I spend 10 minutes only per image, that's now 200 minutes that I'm going to be spending doing that.
Imagine spending an hour on one image.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. And so, then it really comes down to things like workflow. First of all, can I create presets or actions in Photoshop? Traditionally, frequency separation would be a good example. If you set that up from scratch, it takes absolutely forever until you're even ready to start editing with that. So you can create an action, to do that for you, or you can use, of course, more recent tools that will actually do that for you with the move over slider. And that's the thing that really that's really sort of convinced me over the last couple of years or something, is that there are now tools that will get you a result that's pretty much as good as doing it manually, but it will take you an absolute, it takes you no time at all. It's a slider.
And you're right. So you embrace the knowledge of technology, which means education. You have to spend, and you may think, well, I don't have time for that. You don't have time not to do it. Now, like you said, you mentioned frequency separation. That Lee Varus is a phenomenal example. He wrote the book called Skin. Lee Varus and Bobby Lane, phenomenal photographers and incredible mentors over the years. But Lee Varus wrote this book called Skin, which in essence is talking about frequency separation. Roberto Venezuela met with our team, and they told them, this is so cool, about contouring the skin, not the face. All of us do that. We're talking, Roberto says, hey, wouldn't it be really cool if you guys create AI to bring back the proper skin texture in the skin so they don't look like China dolls? So these people, like Roberto, like Lee Varus, like Bobby Lane, they've mastered this over the years, and they said, hey, if you can get technology to do this, you're my new best friend. So with that being said, like I said, with the sports grip book, I'm able, and we did this as an example, 70 little kids, 70 little wrestling kids from click to print in 24 hours. We photographed them early in the morning and click into the computer, boom, my Luminar preset that I created automatically applied, done, sent them off to Miller Lab, who sent me next day. The shipping was free. Next day, shipping free. Those kids got the prints within, we're talking posters, 8 by 10. I mean, these little kids felt like superstars. They got them within 24 hours. That's that whole part of being a pro, proficient, not just professional, being proficient with what you're doing.
And of course, that sets you apart from the competition, potentially, because if nobody else is doing it, or if everybody else takes like 2 weeks to get those shots ready, then you could be the guy who can do it in 24 hours without without the loss of any quality, for instance.
Exactly. And notice this, great champions, great mentors, great master photographers, great anyone, they're never afraid to share how they got there. The ones who hold it to, and I'm so sorry, my brother Joey, I'm sorry, I got to throw you under the bus. My brother Joe is acting like an old Italian woman. He is a master chef. He is one of the only ones, other than my cousin Nick, who's 85, that learned these recipes from my grandmother and from my mother and from my aunt. My cousin Nick shares them freely. My brother Joe, typical Italian, writes them all down, gives you the recipe, but only keeps back some of the key ingredients that makes it his signature. And it's like, Joey, why? I'm going to take these to my grave. It's my dish. And I laugh. In photography, as well as you know, we have people out there that do that. They'll teach you up to a point, but they don't teach you the secret sauce. Don't be afraid. When I fought on the national circuit, I had no problem at the end of the match teaching someone, hey, look, you know what? That was a great match we had. Are you up? And you always ask, are you up for some advice or critiquing? Well, sure. Okay, you had me in that second round. Had you have done this and this, the outcome may have been different. And I got that from an incredible fighter, Steve Mad Dog Curran. We fought in the Canadian Nationals, and I was already the U.S. Triple Crown. If I won in Canada, I would have been the youngest national and international champion. So I fought him. I beat Rick the Jet Rufus, the number one champion at the time. And then Mad Dog Curran, I lost to him. Score was 1-1. Next point, he ends up winning. And he says to me afterwards, he goes, are you John Vanelli's little brother? Yes, I am. He goes, I got to tell you what your brother did for me. And he explained what I just said, the philosophy. He goes, your brother took me off to the side and showed me what to do. With you, what happened? And he put his mouthpiece in and said, Mad Dog. He goes, did I intimidate you? And we started laughing. And he said to me, he goes, you had me. He goes, but I think when you found out who I was, you got into your head that, oh my God, am I really at this level? I said, oh my God, exactly. He goes, I know that because I did that with your brother when he beat me. He goes, get rid of it. This, how incredible that a champion like him took a rookie off to the side and then explained. And by the way, he ended up fighting Billy Blanks, if you saw Tybo. He was a phenomenal fighter. Oh my God. It was for the grand championship. I'm not going to lie. I thank God. I said, God, thank you for letting me lose, because that would have been devastating with what the poor guy went. And then, of course, Steve came up to me and said, if I let you win, you would have taken that abuse.
Oh, it's interesting what you say about mentorship and people holding things back, which is sort of more, it's kind of the old school approach. I remember like back in the 80s or 90s, before the advent of the internet, that was sort of a common thing. those who are really good at something, and I'm sort of I'm always comparing everything to music and especially guitar playing because that's sort of my background.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You saw these people that were like incredible at playing the guitar, for example, and they would give you like little snippets, but they would never tell you the secret, And of course, and this is something I learned the hard way. It's true in music as it is in photography. If you use that 10,000 hours example, you spend 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything. But two people can spend 10,000 hours at the same thing, and still one person can, excel. Because
it's
the trick is
laboring under correct knowledge. You got the luck, did it the right way. I'll take that one step further. So back in the old days, right? So when the invention of the golf cart came out, you know what happened? We lost a lot of great golfers. You know why? The young kids were the caddies to the old masters. So they played along with and watched what the masters golfers did, and they got tips and training from the master golfers. When the golf cart came along, they were obsolete. They didn't need them. So what did the PGA do? The PGA realized, oh shoot, we're not getting the young. So they started a youth group for PGA. And look what happened. They took these mentors, worked with these young kids. Now look what just happened. Photography is the same way, because with the advent of the digital camera, it made it easier for people to know photography, and they didn't have to go into the dark room. They didn't have to be mentored. So education got lazy. I'll just do click. There it is. Oh, it doesn't look good. Click. Here's another picture. Nope, still not good. Click. Oh, there it is. So, and again, I know you're thinking, well, you're the director of education. Of course, you're going to push education. I'm just giving what worked in one area for me, worked in another, and it's working in another. Find the people that you want to learn under, and don't waste those 10,000 hours. Make sure every hour counts. And if that person's not giving you what you need, search out, find other people.
And that is exactly why I always give the advice, for any sort of young or photographer who's starting out, is I always say, join a camera club. There's got to be a camera club in your area. But here's the thing. So, and again, this is something I hear a lot, because I've been a member of my local camera club for donkey's years. And I love it. I don't love the camera club meetings, however, because I'm not very big when it comes, I'm not really big into competitions and stuff like that. That's not the thing. And I hear all the time, you talk to people once they've been going for a year or two or something, they go like, oh, well, I'm looking at competitions all the time, I don't really learn very much. And I always say to them, here's the secret. It's not what happens in the camera club meeting. Bear in mind that you're in a room with people who have 3, 4, 5, 10 times the experience than you have in any genre of photography you can possibly imagine. If you want to know something about portrait photography, it's got to be the guy. There's always a guy or a girl in that club that is like an expert on portrait photography. Or if, in my case, my landscape photography absolutely sucks, but there will be somebody who is extremely good at that. So all the knowledge is there. I just have to go and get it. I'm not getting it whilst we're watching images projected on a wall or we're looking at prints. But we are getting it if we take the extra effort and go to the pub afterwards. That's the secret. In my experience, what happens is camera club meeting, when everything's said and done, everybody goes to the bar or the club or the pub, right? That's what happens over here in England. So everybody then, shuffles off to the pub, for a couple of pints, and everybody sits around a table and chats. That is the moment. You're sitting there with all of that knowledge around the table. Ask the questions, get into the conversation, and draw that knowledge out. To me, it's a complete no-brainer. And I just find it fascinating when people just walk up and then go home afterwards. And I'm like, you're missing the important part. The important part is what happens afterwards.
Right. And that's how you and I met, right? Networking.
Yes, absolutely.
The networking part. And it's interesting because last year, Skylum, our philosophy is we want to get more people into camera clubs. We want more people into camera stores. The more people we get into the clubs, the more people we get into camera stores, the more education they're learning. They sent me, when you saw it, on this amazing U.S. tour and England tour, to where I think I was traveling 3 weeks out of the month. So every month I was in different locations. Sometimes I'd go into, like, let's say Milwaukee, do something there quickly in the same day, drive to Green Bay, do another lesson there, and then drive into Eagle Creek. And in one day I hit 3 clubs, and it was just so amazing. Yeah, I was exhausted afterwards, but I was so excited that Skylum took it upon themselves to say, yes, we need more camera clubs. We need more people in those camera stores. And if you're a camera club, you go to a camera club, and like you said, you're right, competition turns people off. But if you can work with the camera club, say, look, why don't we invite a local high school or local college students and get their teacher, their graphics teacher, their photography teacher, whatever teacher, their art teacher, and we give them an award. Well, let me rephrase this. They have to do something significant. I mean, if they're a lazy teacher, don't give a lazy teacher an award. But if they do something amazing, bring them into the camera club. Hey, we want to acknowledge this person in the arts. As an educator, this is what they've done. Look at what the quality of their students are producing because of this teacher. What's that teacher going to do? Be excited to come in, bring their students along with them, and now look what just happened. Those photography people, typically, I'm sure you'd agree, it's the older generation that's in these groups.
Absolutely.
We need younger people in these groups. One thing that Skylum did, which was absolutely amazing, they took a negative, the war. And it's horrible because a lot of my coworkers, again, my prayers go out to them. They're in the hub of it. But what Ivan did, our CEO, he came up with the Blue Eye program, where they gave cameras to all these little children in a war-torn area and said, here, photograph the beauty of Ukraine in your eyes. Even though it's a war-torn area, they would still go out and find beauty in what they had. And then the proceeds when they sold the images went towards this program again. But how amazing is that? Out of wartime, the Blue Eye program was just, wow. To come up with something like that. And what did we use? Photography as a medium. And what's that doing? Helping change perspective on those children and perspective. We photographers, I'm sorry, whether you realize it or not, we have a responsibility. We're capturing life moments. How many times have you photographed at a party, a wedding, whatever, and then unfortunately that one person passed away? That grandfather that was 90 years old that everyone loved, and the last photo was yours. And they humbly ask you, can I have that photo? How amazing is that feeling? That's how people are going to remember this person for the rest of their life because of you.
Exactly. And it's, even just, you can take a simple headshot session. What happens very often is when, I have clients coming in and they're not used to having a photo taken. Maybe they're only here because their boss has said, look, you need a new headshot for the website. So, go and see Kirsten. And they come in, very often they're very nervous and they kind of go like, oh, I don't really, and they always say the same thing, by the way. They always say like, oh, I hate having my photo taken or something. Oh, I'm totally unphotogenic or whatever. It's always the same thing. And of course they're nervous because it's an unusual situation, big lights, big lens, all of this. It's just like an abnormal, totally unusual situation. And so, but by the end of it, what fascinates me is when they come around and they look at the screen and they see some of the shots and all of a sudden they realize that actually, they go like, oh, shoot. I don't think I've ever looked.
I love saying to them, this is how I see you.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how I see you. I'm trying to capture your essence. And I'm telling you, the world sees you like this.
Exactly. And it's this, I'll tell you what, there's this a super interesting thing. My stepkid's school invited us to. It was like, I can't remember what year they were in. It was year 10, I want to say. But they had this whole thing about body image, right? Because they're teenagers, and of course they're very self-aware and self-conscious, and the whole body image thing comes into it, and advertising and all the influence of social media and all the rest of it. And so they did this evening where they invited all the parents, and they had some speakers, some keynote speakers on there, going through the psychological impact of our body image and stuff. It was actually it was super awesome. But the funny thing was, I sat in there and I'm thinking. And they were talking about, the negative impact of photoshopping, blah, blah, blah. And I was sitting there, that's why I've been doing this all day. I've been retouching all day. But here's the thing. So that is this keynote speaker, super interesting. And what they did this experiment in the US where they had an FBI sketch artist. These guys who basically, if there's a victim of a crime, they come and they describe the perpetrator, and then, the sketch artist basically does a pencil drawing of the the criminal or whatever, just based on their description. So they did this thing. That is group of people, and they had everyone came in individually, and they sat behind a screen, so the artist couldn't see them, and they were basically describing the way they thought that they looked. So they were describing themselves, and so the FBI artist would basically draw an image based on their self-description. Okay, so then they would basically send them back, and they would sit them in a room with another person, one of the other people from the group. And they would leave them in there for an hour or two to have a conversation, get to know each other, get friendly and whatnot. Then they would call each individual person back, and they would say, describe the other person that you just had a conversation with.
Wow.
And so in the end, the FBI sketch artist ended up with 2 images of each person. One was the self-description, the way that people saw themselves. And then the other version, which was how other people or the other person saw them. And it was super interesting when you saw these 2 images in comparison. And it was literally like the way we see ourselves is so much more negative than the way that other people see us. And this is the thing, as a photographer, you're really you're sort of literally the lens, like the magic ingredient that will open up somebody's eyes to how the world actually sees them. And there's like a magic in there, there's the same sort of magic in there that I remember from being a musician, when people listen to a song and that song moves something, it makes them remember a particular situation or something, or something like that. It's that same emotional response to that I always find that's the thing that I love about portrait photography. That's kind of, in essence, that why primarily I'm a portrait photographer, because I love doing that. I love that response, that human response.
Oh, perfect. I think you knew I'm a poet, and I have 7 books coming out, hopefully before Christmas. The same philosophy. And in each of the poems I have, I put a "Today I Will." So whatever the name of the poem is, then the bottom is "Today I will elude blah, 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 blah," through it. And that's, like you said, people see it. So they read through the poem and say, oh, wow, I got this from the poem. And maybe that wasn't even my intention, but it spoke to them during that way. And ironically, like you just said about the retouching, with AI, there's always been a big, oh my God, now you're going to change a person so much that the person's own mother can't recognize them. That's when you went overboard. So Skylum is one of the groups, and Adobe did the same, where body shaming. They made sure that the tools that we're using are just enough to enhance features. So let's say like a facial feature. If I used a wide angle lens, well, that lens caused lens distortion. That person may look a little bit wide. Now I'm going to shape the face a little bit.
Yeah.
Or the body. In fact, I did it as a joke. You remember Jim Nix and Thomas, one of our guys, as a joke. Us 3 took this beautiful photo in one of the not Yellowstone, in one of the famous parks in the U.S. And they jokingly said, we're going to use this as a Christmas present or Christmas card. And I jokingly said, yeah, because I look heavy and you 2 thin guys. So I jokingly made myself look really thin and then made them look really heavy. And I said, let's send this out to everyone. They're like, what did you do, Vanelli? And I busted out laughing because I did the opposite, just as a joke. But we joked with each other. And I said to them, in my prime, I was about 195 was my fighting weight. And there's no photos of me because after I retired, got injured, I put on a lot more weight than I'm used to. I didn't want to be in any picture. After my brother passed away, my oldest one, I realized, oh my God, because I did, of course, the slideshow, there's no photos of me. So if I pass away tomorrow, sure, there's photos like you and me at conventions. We always took pictures of each other, but no offense, you're a good-looking guy. But my family's not going to want to see a picture of you. They want to see a picture of me and the family. Yeah. So I made a vow from now on at family gatherings, instead of me just taking the pictures, me jumping in the pictures with them. That's that whole body shaming. I went through it. I was a former champion. This is what I looked like. Glenn Lewis went through it. He'd always say, oh no, I'm not like I used to be. When you drop that and say, you know what? This is who I am right now. That doesn't define me. I'm going to rise above it. Then we get confidence to these people that are a little overweight or they're self-conscious. They feel, you know what? Beauty is from within. And that's amazing. And by the way, my brother said to me, well, of course you would say that. And it's a joke. Remember, he's my brother, older one. Only ugly people could say the beauty's from within. Us beautiful people, of course, say that's not true. No, of course, he did it as a joke. What did he say? Oh, ugliness is only skin deep. And he calls me Robbie. Nobody calls me that. Robbie, you're ugly clear to the bone. And again, it's older brother banter. But isn't that true? Like you said, Photoshop, people that overuse tools like Photoshop to make a person look so unidentified, it is bad. So you as a photographer, again, make sure you use it responsibly. And a lot of tools, like in Skylum, we put in the safeguard towards you're not going to be able to do that extremeness. Graphic programs, that's what they're meant to do. So, guys, we have a lot of great questions and great topics here.
Cool. Well, that's what we're known for here. Well, on the Camera Tank podcast, obviously, clearly, but then I would say that. I want to come back to the education part of it. One of the things I find a lot, especially with people starting out in photography, is that when it comes to education, the first step is often YouTube. It's basically, getting on the computer, getting on the Google machine, and starting to watch, started watching videos on YouTube. My problem with that is that at the beginning, you just don't know what you don't know at that point. And
you're speaking like a true educator. You're teaching like you're speaking like a true educator. So let me explain what Scott Kelby said. Kelby said, Valley, YouTube teaches you how to put batteries in a remote control. It teaches you if that remote doesn't work, these are steps you can do. You have to take a class on how to build that remote. There's a big difference. So your remote's not working, jump on YouTube. Hey, why isn't my remote? Oh, try the batteries. Try this, try that. Great. But if you want to learn how to create your own remote control, you have to take classes for it. So I look at it like this. You start out in your camera clubs. You learn from the local people, and then you listen to what they say. Hey, I tried this YouTube. I did this. I did that. Okay, then you investigate. Remember, luck laboring under correct knowledge. And if you have the luck, you're laboring under correct knowledge. And that's why it's extremely important. You research on YouTube. And after you research on YouTube, then you're like, oh, I liked watching Kirsten. I liked watching Roberto Venezuela. I loved watching Scott Kelby. Then you go and you look at their tutorials. And then when you go to conferences, that's the next phase. You meet the people face on. You take a class with them. Wow, I want to learn more. Then you take their workshops. And then it goes into what type of workshops do you take? Like Roberto Venezuela does a phenomenal boutique type workshop. He only takes a few people and does this amazing work. And then Skylum and other groups have tours. We have the Lunar Adventure Tours, where you're immersed in Iceland for 7 days with world-class photographers side by side teaching you these things. So that's where, if you want to get educated, we already said, start with the camera clubs, jump onto YouTube, take platforms like Kelby One, LinkedIn Learning, and then from there, find your favorite photographers, learn from them.
And that's absolutely true. There really isn't anything quite like doing a workshop for 5, 6, 7 days, with some really good photographers, really good photography teachers, and having the opportunity to ask any question you want. I think that's always the thing for me that makes that stand out way above the rest. It's because you can just ask, even if you feel like it's a stupid question, like how do I switch on bracketing on my camera? I have no idea. Well, I've never done it before.
Exactly.
There's going to be somebody who can basically show you that in 2 seconds, hands-on. That's going to save you having to watch like an 8-minute video on YouTube or whatever, right? Or actually, you spend another 20 minutes even just finding that video. That's the thing. The thing about education is, one thing I learned. I mean, I've been at I used to run a music school. I've been in education for 30 years nearly. The one thing I've always understood in terms of making long-term gains in just about anything is that you need a structured approach. You need to have structure to it. Where one lesson builds on what was going on before. And so you find your path, and of course we call that a learning path. Where you structure your journey. Like, let's say you want to learn how to retouch a face. There's a whole bunch of different elements that play a role there. How do you retouch skin? How do you retouch hair, eyes, blah, 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 backgrounds, this and the other. These are all individual lessons that build up on each other. And so creating that learning path is like super important. Every university course, every college course, every high school course works like that in an ideal world, where you have a structured learning path through everything. And this is the thing that I sometimes find, is, especially on YouTube, that's difficult because it's like a shotgun approach. You watch one video and then, in the, on the right, whatever it's called, the sidebar, you see like 20 other videos that are kind of similar, and you go like, oh, okay, you watch that, and you go like, oh, I don't understand that because that's like way over my head. Or
you're
that's
right.
completely...
That's where the whole thing of correct knowledge comes in, right? And never getting discouraged where you're at. Say, okay, well, I'm here now. So go as far as you can see. And when you get there, look back and say, oh, wow, look how far you've come. And then you'll be able to learn to see further. So always go as far as you can see. And when you get there, learn to look further. But once again, you like you said, you're researching, because YouTube is filled with a million different ways of doing something. You have to decide what's best for you. And speaking like a true educator, don't assume everyone learns the way you learn.
Well, exactly.
A great example, Dennis Waitley, Dr. Dennis Waitley, phenomenal motivational speaker, made a comment of where the mother took this child, for Christmas shopping, and she was so excited, 5-year-old child. And when they got there, she thought this was going to be amazing. The child is crying, screaming, having a horrible time. She's like, what is going on? She bent down to tie the little kid's shoe. And when she looked up from his perspective, everything looked scary. It was a horrible experience for him. I heard that. And then I realized, you know what? When I meet little children for the first time to do a photo shoot, if I try to high five them, I'm a big guy. They see this huge Shrek-like hand coming towards their face. Of course, they're scared. So what do I do instead? High five mom and dad. Talk to mom. Hi, little kid. Talk to mom and dad. And then gradually, when the kid feels comfortable, oh, wow, my parents like him. Then, hey, how you doing? Hand down low, high five, flip it, hand back again. Now you built a rapport with that child. All of that came from that Dr. Dennis Waitley. Learn to look at their perspective. And as you teach, Same concept. Just because I learn a certain way, other people may be visual learners. Other people might be kinesthetic learners where they have to write everything out. So you just have to decide, how can I get through it? This isn't working. Well, let me try plan B. That doesn't. Well, what about plan C? Well, maybe another instructor can help this person better than I can. And for God's sake, don't let your egos get involved.
Absolutely. That's, so true. And good example. My wife and I are really good examples for like opposite types of learners. My preferred method of learning, if it's not face-to-face, that's really overall my preferred method of learning. But failing that, I'm really quite comfortable learning off of a screen, watching actually watching a YouTube video or an online course or something. That really works for me. I'm sort of a visual learner, so if I can see somebody doing something, I retain it really well. I'm not so good when it comes to reading books or instruction manuals or anything like that. That to me is difficult. My wife, the total opposite. The instruction manuals, perfect. Books, perfect. Give her a video to watch, she'll moan and complain all day long. It's just a different type of learner. But it's important to realize that about yourself, so you can really, you can maximize the way that you
know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and learn. And admit there's weaknesses. Admit. You know what? Yeah, this is what I'm strong at. This is what I'm not strong at. In fact, real quick, a good example. We're in Utah. One light in this whole area. Jim Nix loves Scott Kelby. Never met him. Wants to meet him. Phenomenal landscape photographer. Sitting across from Scott Kelby. And Scott just got done with his London tour. Absolutely amazing travel photography. So I whip out my phone. I turn to Scott and say, Scott, what about these images? He's flipping through. I remember, like you and I were portrait photographers. He's flipping through these images of England. Vanelli. These are absolutely amazing. You like them? Yeah. They're Jim Nix's photos, not mine. Jim Nix had this grin from ear to ear, and Scott goes, Jim, wow, these are amazing. And Scott said to him, one day, I'd love for you and I to work together on stuff. That made Jim's night. Like, wow, Vanelli, why'd you do that? Well, because you would be better at doing a workshop with him in England than I would be. Throw a portrait person in there. Do an environmental portrait, no problem. But trying to, like I always joke with them, wow, look at that rock. Wow, another rock. Wow, same rock, different location. And they would say, Vanelli, you're not seeing the beauty of it. Pretend it's portraits. Look how the light is kissing the hilltop. Look when they did that. Ooh, now my Iceland shots came out really nice. I was like, oh, wow, now I get it. But once again, one area we're developing in, try to apply that to what you're learning in other genres too.
Yeah. And, again, the face-to-face learning for me, it's the way that I learn the best. And I took advantage of that last year when I did a photography masterclass with Dave Williams up in the Lofoten Islands in Norway.
Another one.
The thing for me was like, okay, my job was to basically teach the, on location portrait photography, so on location lighting and all the rest of it. But of course, the value for me was really in like, I'm out there with Dave Williams. I'm going to learn a ton about landscape photography, about, photographing the Northern Lights. Like, to me, that was
yeah.
Yeah. And, the landscape photography in itself, well, to me, that's a steep learning curve. Put a Viking in there. I can light that dude. No problem. And that's the thing. So, I, as much as I enjoyed the teaching side of it, I really, 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 really enjoyed the learning part of it, because actually it has made me a better photographer. And I've also realized that I can apparently operate my camera in the total pitch black dark.
Except there you go. Yep. I know I got yelled at when we were doing night photography, and I couldn't find certain features they wanted me to do. And they shut that light off, Vanelli. Use a red light. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. It's funny you mentioned Dave Williams. I was with him when he first started out. I am so proud of how far he's come, and his work is absolutely amazing. In fact, he was the one, when I first met him in England, he had enough connections to get me ready for this, 10 Downing Street. I was
Oh,
able
wow.
to go into, I know, so my American friends are like, big deal. No, 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 no. That's like going to the White House. And there's a
Yeah.
picture of me in a Bobby hat, me in front of the 10 Downing, right in front of the 10 Downing Street door. And I thank Dave for showing me his England. He took me to the palaces, he took me all around, and it was like we just only met a few times at Photoshop World. And when he reached out and said, "You're going to be in England? Let me take you and Rich Harrington out and do this. I want to show you the way I see England." And it was I can't thank him enough. That was, I don't know how many years ago that was. But his photography and education knowledge and how he's teaching people have absolutely, that's a perfect example of how he learned with Kelby. He learned from other people in the industry. And now look at him as an incredible, not just photographer, but educator.
It's funny you mentioned him showing you London, because I went on a trip with him and Steve Brazel, actually. So Steve came
Another
to
great
London.
photographer.
Steve came to London on a vacation sort of thing, and so Dave and I said, okay, well let's take him through London, and show them the town. And of course, some of our listeners and viewers might know this, of course, but Dave used to be a Metropolitan Police officer, so he used to be on the force, as they say. And so Dave gave us an incredible tour based on his experience as a police officer. It was fantastic. It was like literally like the dark side of London. Like oh yeah, do you see this bridge over there? Yeah. Oh well, I remember being called out. There was somebody was about to jump over that bridge. Well, like, oh yeah, there's somebody got robbed over there. Or somebody got and it's the whole thing was like a crime tour of central London. It was it was a lot more fun than your regular tourist track.
But once again, notice a great person is willing to share their knowledge with you. Those are the educators you look for. I got my one shot of Big Ben, not the rephrase it, Big Ben's the bell, the tower. They had the beautiful shot of that, F-22 at nighttime, got all the beautiful starbursts and the lights. But you know what? We were in a location we weren't supposed to be. And what do you call them? Constables, the policemen came up. And Dave looked at me and said, "You owe me." He turned and just started going, "You guys got to get out of here." Dave started talking to him. And you could tell in his head, he was counting down how many seconds I had left to get the shot. One shot is all I got. And he goes, blah, 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 blah. Vanelli, got it. He goes, "All right, sir, we are so sorry we're leaving." And we left. And he goes, "Did you get the shot?" "Oh, thank God, Dave. Thank you." So every time I see that image, I always think of him. And if it wasn't for him, I never would have got that shot.
Yeah, and and again, for anybody, if you've never shot the Northern Lights before, all I can say is, like, I highly recommend his tour company that he's just set up there on Lofoten Inside. Check it out. It's the best guide you can get up there. Unbelievable. Now, what would be your number one tip for anybody who wants to improve their their photography? What would be like your number one tip?
Passion. Find what you're passionate about. Find your why. Find your why. Why do you want to photograph landscape? If you say to make a lot of money, sorry, there's a million people out there with photography, and I got to tell you, they're better than you right now. So don't make that be your priority. What is your passion? Why are you doing this? And if you're a portrait photographer, here's 3 questions you have to ask. Because you know this, how many times people ask you, "Hey, can you do my portraits for free?" Ask yourself, 1, do I like the person? 2, is it good for my portfolio? Will these images help my portfolio? And 3, will it help me financially? If you can't say yes to 2 of those 3, don't do the free shoot, or don't even take the paid shoot. If I like the person, but I don't need the images for my portfolio anymore, and I'm sorry, I don't need it for my financial, then tell them, "Hey, look, I could do the shoot for free. However, I have to charge you an equipment fee of 225 or something. And that will separate the ones who are their users, that they're just trying to take your knowledge from you or use your skills, and those who are sincere. Now, Rich Harrington is the one who taught me that. So I use that same philosophy with the Ronald McDonald House. You're familiar with McDonald's. They have this amazing Arnold Palmer Hospital where they have the Ronald McDonald House next to it. And what that does is it houses the parents of the children in the Arnold Palmer House. So ones who can't afford hotels, they stay there. So they asked for me to help. First year I did it. Do I like them? Tremendously. Is it good for my portfolio? Well, yeah. Is it good for me money-wise? No. I had to pay all my travel expenses. First year, no problem. Second year, I really don't need it. Okay, I'll do it. Third year, I love them. I don't need it for my portfolio. And I'm sorry, it's not helping me financially. So that whole Italian Catholic guilt trip washed over me. And I thought, you know what? What if I teach my interns how to do this? Now the interns went in, they liked the people. It was great for their portfolio, and no, we didn't make money off of it. Well, now the interns took over. I stepped back. And what's really cool is those interns passed it off to another set of interns. And every so often, the Ronald McDonald House will call me and say, I got to tell you, Vanelli, no offense, but man, this last batch of interns, they did better than you. As photographers, people try to appeal to our egos, and they'll go, oh, really? Well, I'm going to come on. I'm going to show you. Nope. I said, well, that's amazing. I'm so glad I could help. So I don't let that ego thing get in the way. And but it's so cool. They still get what they want, and now other people are benefiting from it.
Yeah, I think that's a super important thing to bear in mind. I think the portfolio thing, when you're first starting out, is super important. You have to somehow create a portfolio. And if let's say if you want to start out as a headshot photographer, for example, you need to have a portfolio of heads. You need warm bodies in front of your lens. And in the very beginning, go and get anybody off of the street. Anybody like your brother, your sister, your uncle, your aunt, your toaster, maybe not the toaster, but anybody will initially do for two reasons. First of all, it's practice. You get to practice your lighting, you get to practice all that, you get to practice your posing, your communication skills, all that kind of stuff. Everything that it takes, you get to practice that, your retouching skills, whatever. So just get bodies in front of the lens. But there's a point where you got to start to be a little bit more discerning, and it's exactly like you said.
Yep.
Do I need this?
Three lessons come in.
Yeah, and I always, so when I'm asked whether I would do a shoot for free, I ask myself the exact same things. The thought in the back of my head is always like, I want to be in the driving seat. I do a lot of stuff for free throughout the year. Sure, I work with charities. I help friends, whatever. But I want to be in the driving seat, and I want to say I want to do that thing. Or of course, there's personal projects, which is a huge thing, I think. In order to learn and to get better, because you can learn all the theory, but you are going to have to put yourself into that driving seat at some point and actually go and do it.
They're doing you a favor because you're trying to doing very creative. Photographers, you gotta give those photos to those people.
Yes, big time.
If it's a TF shoot, time for or trade for, they're trading their time for your time. So don't hold back on all of these images. You pick your favorites. Let them select some of their favorites because you're making a deal. You get in front of my camera.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. We share. Now we collaborate. Now, here's my only suggestion. Make sure you take your safe shots. You take a shot that you absolutely know, without a shadow of a doubt, this is going to be phenomenal. And then do your creative stuff. Because face it, not every shot we take is phenomenal. So if I have this incredible creative idea, I do the shoot, and it doesn't come off the way I thought it would, well, I don't want those images being out in the public. So I do creative shots first, or I do my safe shots first. Now their time is not wasted. And I tell them, I want to get a little creative. It may work, it may not work. If it works, wow, you're going to love it. If it doesn't work, we'll delete them so the world never sees it. And they laugh, no problem. Yeah. But they always end up with at least a handful of great shots that they could use because you're sharing that back and forth. And they're more receptive because it's collaborative. And especially if you're just starting out. And by the way, if you are, this in portrait photography, if you're just starting out, you have another person in front of you. If you have another person in front of you, make sure that you rehearse before they even get there. So when they step in front of your lens, you're not doing the lighting. And please don't make a mistake I did. New camera. I couldn't get it was a Nikon D810. Could not get the friggin' thing to autofocus in low light. And I can, this is horrible. Oh, God, what is wrong? Ashley below, this poor model looks, Mr. Vanelli, I'm so sorry. I'm trying. I go, Ashley, no, not you. It's me. I swear to God, I'm talking about the camera. It dawned on me at that time, don't ever let them see you sweat. Yep. Take a shot, it comes out like crap. Don't tell, oh my God, you look horrible. God, for a good-looking person, you really look horrible in these photos. Don't do that. So that's why I say make sure you get the safe shots first and then go back and experiment.
It's always the worst thing when a photographer looks at the back of the screen and goes, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in front of the camera, you go like, what? Oh no. It's because you reflect it onto yourself and you go like, oh no, he thinks I look horrible. Ugh.
Now, if you shoot a lot of sports, athletes are the hardest ones to work with because they're such children and especially high school. Well, actually college athletes. So as a joke, I'll say to them, and again, breaking the ice, hey guys, let me explain something. You step foot in front of my camera. You better be game ready. You have your uniform on, your cleats, everything you would to step foot on that field. And if I do my job right, your competitors that played against you in the following week will see these images and think, oh my God, they must have been thinking about me when they photographed this. The attention. And guys, when you post this on the internet and you post it on Instagram, you and even you will end up with a date tonight. And when I say that to them, of course, the athletes are really, that you get them involved. What they're really paying for is an experience.
Exactly. That's why I always say that.
Exciting experience. In fact, I did that for my son's college lacrosse team. And one of the kids joked to my son, your dad's a whiz. I posted on Instagram. I got a date with that girl I've always wanted. And my son said, dummy, all my father did was give you the confidence to post that image. She commented on it. Now you have the confidence to say, hey, would you like to go on a date with me? My dad had nothing to do with it except building your confidence. So we create experiences. And when they look at that picture, wow, they remember what they did to get that shot.
Yeah, it's because we always, we remember what we felt like. It's the same with music. Like we remember, this is how I felt the first time I heard that song, or this song just happened to play when this, when I first met my first girlfriend or whatever it was, right? And the thing is, like, it's so true to say that that what we're actually selling also, from a professional point of view, is we're selling an experience, the end product. Because I always say this, like, people come to me for headshots. Okay. They obviously see my work online, blah, 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 and that's the work they want. But ultimately, creating a good image is sort of the baseline. Like on a professional level, that's sort of a given. Like, a lot of my colleagues that I know create amazing imagery. It's like, that's not the thing that makes that special. They could go down to have the headshots taken somewhere else, and they would still come back with really awesome images. The difference is the experience. That taking somebody that comes through the door and is really nervous and doesn't really want to be there, and turning them around to the point where they leave going, I really enjoyed that. That was really fun. I had a really great experience. That's the magic. And that's what they remember. And that's also what they recommend on when they, give you a referral to a friend, for example. That is what they're going to be talking about. I had a really great experience. The images were great, but it was really fun. It took all my nerves away.
And piggybacking on what you're saying, if you're looking for people to photograph, you photograph your own children, that could be a nightmare. Right? Because they'll listen to everybody but you. Here's the trick.
Exactly.
Bring their friends. You have your children bring their friends on a shoot, and they see how everyone's having excitement. Then you say to your child, hey, do me a favor, my son Alec, hop up here. Show them what we're looking for. And boom, now I got the sport portraits of my son that are phenomenal. Because I tried it the other way, single dad, put him up there, and he's, are we done yet? Are we finished? Come on. When his friends were involved, I had this one amazing shot he did. He crafted it. I was the monkey who just pushed the button. Now think about this. Growing up, he watched these college players become pros. And now he's meeting them with me on these shoots. And now he's teaching them how to do the special pose that he has. And the pros are going, wow, Alec, that's amazing. Holy crap, they know my name. And so that's how I used my son, or a sibling or a cousin or niece, whatever, in my shot. Bring other people in. Now they're going to help you with anything you need.
Now, V, I want to ask you, after all of this amazing advice that you've divulged and passed on to our listeners and viewers on YouTube, if you think back over your own career, was there a defining moment that sort of shaped your career as a photographer?
So I tried my best not to let my notoriety in the martial arts influence my photography. Like, I love Michael Jordan. He wrote a book, #1 bestseller. Did he write the book? I don't know. Leonard Nimoy, I don't know if you know Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock, was a phenomenal photographer. But was he a master photographer? But he has all these incredible books on photography. So you want Crosby, Stills, and Nash is another one. Nash is a phenomenal photographer. But again, has his notoriety come because of his fame or because he's really good at it? So I think my defining moment, I sent that image to Scott Kelby. And Scott Kelby said, wow, Vanelli, you turned into a phenomenal photographer. I go, wait a second. And I sent him the unedited image, and he writes back, wow, your Photoshop skills have come a long way. The photo was horrible. He goes, let me give you some tips on how to becoming a better photographer. So I think that was my defining moment of where you can make, horrible photos look amazing, but why not learn it in camera first? So people like Mike Cabasi, the Hollywood photographer, our good friend, he photographs all the NCIS TV shows. He's been a close friend of mine for the last, God knows how many years, decades. He always says, Vanelli, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken, we'll call it crap. Because you got to get it right in camera. Make sure you learn, have a mentor. So he was the one who taught me about that. But my defining moment was when people like Scott Kelby or even Faye Circus, she was a phenomenal Photoshop painter. So she painted in Photoshop before Corel and all that stuff came along. When she saw one of my images, she said, Vanelli, wow, amazing. That touched my heart. Because I realized, wow, Vanelli, Robert Vanelli did it, not Vanelli, the martial artist. So I think that was my defining moment, was when and I hate to say this, validation. And honest, that's not something we should strive for. I've always said, I've always appreciated the roar of the crowd when I competed, but I never allowed their applause of approval be the measurement of my success, because I knew at some point their applause will grow silent and a new champion will come along. So I measured my success by performing to the best of my ability. win or lose, it didn't matter. If I outperformed my best and it took me to the championship circle, well, then I was added bonus. Photography, the same way. I could produce something, you may hate it, but if I love this image or my poetry, I love it. I'm sorry, that's all that matters. To me, that's all that matters. Now, when you're working with clients, give the clients listen to what the clients want, but then give them what they need. So they want this, but you know what? I'm going to give you this based on what you want. I'm going to help you make an informed decision. But if they say, I want that crappy, underexposed, out of focus image, that's what I want. If they're paying, it's like you go to the meat store, a butcher gives you meat. The butcher doesn't follow you home and watch how you prepare that meat. And if he doesn't like the way you're doing it, he takes it back from you. I'm sorry, if you're into this as a business, you give the clients what they ask for. Don't pull the holier than thou artist. Oh, no, it's not to my standings. You're not getting it. Just tell them, don't put my name on it. You want to pay for it, right? Right?
And don't use it on your portfolio. I mean, it's as easy as that, really. That's the thing.
Awesome.
That's right. I get that question a lot. Actually, pretty much, I think, with every client. When it comes to the photo selection point at the end, I like to make sure that they select their final shots at the end of the session rather than having to deal with online galleries and stuff, because to me, it just drags the whole process on and on. So I actually build that into my session, that we sit down and we select the hero shots for each look. So I know exactly what goes into retouching, and the client already has a good idea as to, what that's going to look like. So, but often as part of that selection process, I get this question. They go like, why don't you select your favorite shot? Because you're the expert. And I always say like, well, I will guarantee you that if I pick a shot that I think is the best shot out of this lot, you probably got to disagree. And that's because you know your face much better than I do. And, I want to make sure that, we pick the photo that you love the most.
Another phenomenal topic. Have you heard of Slick Pick? So it's your portfolio. What I love about Slick Pick, the guy Sam is a photographer, and he created this mainly for camera clubs. This is so cool. You saw the kittens photo shoot I did the other day? All the little kittens in a tree. I used my Pro Photo, and I know Pro Photo was like Vanelli. We're usually photographing beautiful supermodels with our gear, and you're photographing kittens in a tree. We love it, but it's not what they're used to. So with Sam, this is what I did. I uploaded all the images to my Slick Pick portfolio. And then on the phone, or, when we were done, she was able to go in and pick her favorites. And now this portfolio, nobody can see except her, unless she gives them the link. And guess what? I click on export the favorites. It gives me the list of their favorites. And now I can edit just those images and not have to worry about it. And then, of course, I usually pick what you said. I'll pick 2 or 3 of my hero shots that I want my portfolio.
Exactly.
Give that to them. Yeah. And then they say, I love those, but I also like this, this, and this. Great. So we just went from 300 images to only editing 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Slick Pick, they have a new called Mobi Album. And then after I'm done creating it, you click on this Mobi Album, and it shoots them a link that they could download this mobile app on their phone, and those images go on there. So they don't have to have an internet connection when it's done, and they can share it on social media. They could give it to people. They could, whatever they want to do. It's right there. So gone are the days of them calling you. Hey, you took my photo back in 2012. Could you find it for me? No, you have your own portfolio. Here's your portfolio. You want that image? Look for it. Tell me which one you want. I'll edit it for you for this fee.
Yeah.
So but I absolutely love, now I use Slick Pick. There's other ones out there that are very good too, but I just love the fact that you can select your favorites and that it sends you the file numbers so that I just punch them in, done.
Yeah, and that's what I like about Pixie Set. So on the rare occasion that I mean, I do use online galleries. I just don't use them for actual sessions most of the time. Yep. There are always exceptions, but I do use them for like event shoots and some on location shoots sometimes, and all sorts of different things. Band shoots, good example.
Yeah, because you're sitting with them, and they're picking their favorites in front of you, and now there's that experience that you're delivering.
Vanelli, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. We could carry on this conversation for another 3 hours, I'm sure.
It had to be a 3-part series. But just a quick recap, laboring under correct knowledge, LUCK, we talked about. Now, I dropped a lot of names in there, not for name dropping, but if you and I both agreed these peoples are very significant, if you're listening to this podcast, look these people up. Maybe one of them will be something that you'd want. Then we talked about how to get more people in front of your camera. Then we talked also a lot about the camera clubs and the way of learning all the way through. You filled this episode tremendously. I've always seen you as a great photographer, but you're an incredible host too. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's the clip that I'll cut out for the social media use. Thanks so much, man. Okay, folks, that is it for today. It was awesome having Vanelli on the show. And as always, before we go, let me just recommend another episode that I think you like. Check out episode 216 with Matthew Brown, where we talk about capturing amazing landscapes. I'm sure you love it. If you enjoy our content, consider supporting us on buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us continue creating and bringing you more exciting episodes. It really does mean the world to us. And for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this podcast, did you know that there's a fully fledged video version over on YouTube with plenty of examples of our guest photography in full Technicolor? Well, all you have to do is go over to YouTube, search for Camera Shake Podcast, and you'll be able to watch all past episodes on there. And if you're already on YouTube, of course, drop us a comment, hit the like button, ring that bell, and share with your friends. Your engagement helps us reach a wider audience all over the world. Thank you for listening and watching, and remember, a new episode drops every Thursday. So make sure you mark that in your calendars, diaries, whatever it is that you use. Just put a little tick in it. Until next time, keep shaking things up in the world of photography. See you next Thursday.